It's official. Fauci is gone. He has resigned effective December. And of course, he's joining quite the lineup. Think about it. In less than a week, we've ousted Liz Cheney, Brian Stelter at CNN, and now Dr. Fauci. What a historic week. We're going to take a look at the resignation. We're going to see how more and more Republicans are calling out the timing of this resignation. And make sure to stick with the very end of this video when I'll reveal what it looks like GOP committees will be investigating in mere months from now. You're not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. It's Dr. Steve with you, your patron professor, helping to think better so you can feel better in these crazy and turbulent times. So if you haven't already done so, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Also, make sure to show some love to our sponsor of this video, and that's the one and only Patriot of Patriots, Mike Lindell, and his brand new My Coffee. I love this coffee, and you will too. You can get Mike's coffee delivered right to your front door. It comes in a variety of flavors. It's ground or whole bean. Plus, it's certified organic and non-GMO. And the best part is you'll know that with every sip, you're supporting a true patriot who's fighting for freedom. Click on that link below or go to mystore.com and use code Turley for 25% off. And by the way, that applies to all their products at mystore.com. Make sure to click on that link below, go to mystore.com and use code Turley for 25% off. All right, let's dive right in here. It is now official. Dr. Anthony Fauci has resigned effective December. The controversial infectious disease official who became the face of America's COVID-19 pandemic response has announced that he is indeed stepping down as chief medical advisor to Biden and as the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. This after spending more than 50 years, half a century, living off of our tax dollars in Washington, D.C. And by the way, he'll continue to collect those tax dollars in the form of $350,000 a year as part of his annual retirement package. This is why we say that the D.C. swamp has become nothing more than a business model. Now, while the left-wing activists disguised as journalists over at the New York Times are reporting that Fauci's stepping down merely to pursue the next chapter in his life, Republicans are more and more coming out and accusing Fauci of stepping down because he knows the GOP is going to take over the House and it's going to be establishing oversight committees to actively investigate him. Check out this tweet from Arizona Representative Andy Briggs. Dr. Fauci is conveniently resigning from his position December before House Republicans have an opportunity to hold him accountable for destroying our country over these past 3 years. This guy is a coward. And he went on to affirm that Republicans will indeed hold Fauci accountable whether he remains in office or not. Senator Rand Paul reiterated precisely that, tweeting out, quote, Fauci's resignation will not prevent a full-throated investigation into the origins of the pandemic. He will be asked to testify under oath regarding any discussions he participated in concerning the lab leak. Former White House communications director under Trump, Mercedes Schlapp, tweeted out, quote, it is no coincidence that Dr. Fauci just announced that he will resign from the government in December, which is right after Republicans will take back the House and immediately plan oversight into our pandemic responses and his funding of gain-of-function research at the Wuhan lab. Now, obviously, it goes without saying that as far as Republicans are concerned, Fauci has got a lot to answer for. As I'm sure you know, it was widely reported back in October of last year that the National Institutes of Health admitted that they did indeed fund gain-of-function research on bats infected with coronaviruses at a lab in Wuhan, despite repeated denials by Fauci that U.S. tax dollars were used in gain-of-function research. In a letter to Representative James Comer, ranking member of the House Committee on Oversight and Reform, an NIH official admitted that the laboratory mice infected with a modified bat virus did indeed become sicker than mice that were given the unmodified bat virus. And that is the nature of gain-of-function research. It's a line of research where scientists take viruses and study how they might be modified to become deadlier or even more transmissible. And as I understand it, gain-of-function research basically plays war games with a virus. It supposedly helps scientists figure out which viruses threaten people the most so that they can design countermeasures. But of course, The risk in all of this is that the viruses that are being researched and made all the more deadly and transmissible have the possibility of spreading outside the lab. Back in April of last year, the Wall Street Journal reported that the National Institutes of Health, under the directorship of Fauci, actually funded the Wuhan lab's research through an organization known as the EcoHealth Alliance to the tune of $3.7 million. And now it looks like the NIH is indeed openly admitting this, and they did fund EcoHealth, and EcoHealth in turn funded gain-of-function research at the Wuhan lab. And this has all been brought out in hearings via Senator Rand Paul, who's been the lead senatorial investigator into Fauci's dealings with Wuhan. And then, of course, there was that strange and rather sickening controversy that erupted around Fauci, which involved revelations that Fauci used tax dollars to fund cruel animal experiments, right? Experiments involving dogs, beagles, being trapped in cages so flies could eat their flesh, and another where the dog were, quote, debarked before being pumped with drugs that killed them. The White Coat Waste Project released disturbing images of bizarre research at a Tunisian lab where puppies were seen with their heads trapped in cages, being left for sandflies to eat them alive for research purposes. And apparently, Fauci's National Institutes of Allergies and Infectious Diseases gave that research $375,000 in grant monies. Another $2 million was given for a grizzly experiment where puppies underwent what's called a cordectomy, which involves cutting their vocal cords to stop them from barking before pumping them up with drugs. And then they were summarily killed and dissected. And then nearly $500,000 was given for a test that involved beagles howling in pain. I mean, the revelations were so disturbing that a bipartisan letter was sent to Fauci demanding answers from this investigation by the White Coat Waste Project. And keep in mind, this was all on top of the email scandal that rocked Fauci a few months before then. But before we get into that, remember, there's just a couple of days left to sign up to be one of the first to find out about the virtual premiere of my brand new movie, The Return of the American Patriot, The Rise of Pennsylvania. We got a pre-sale going on right now where tickets are extremely discounted, but just for a limited time, and you don't want to miss this. So make sure to click on the link below to get on the virtual premiere waitlist or go to turleyproductions.com. All right, so back in June of last year, when thousands of private emails from Fauci released to the Washington Post and BuzzFeed and CNN through the Freedom of Information Act, we found these emails. They were going back to when COVID first reached our shores and developed into the full-blown pandemic. The Fauci emails were in many respects startling because they revealed the radical discrepancy between what Fauci actually knew about the lab leak theory from the very beginning and what he publicly stated he knew, which is obviously a huge problem for Fauci given that those public statements were under oath. But we now know as early as January 31st, 2020, Fauci had received an email from the head of the nation's largest biomedical research facility warning Fauci that COVID was very possibly engineered, coming from a lab rather than the so-called wet market. So the whole question as to whether COVID was engineered was front and center with Fauci and the NIH from the very beginning of the pandemic. But of course, given that the NIH funded gain-of-function research in Wuhan, there appears to have been efforts to downplay that origins theory. So it does seem to be no coincidence that Fauci is leaving before the Republicans take over. And it remains to be seen what the new Republican majority will do to finally hold Fauci accountable. As always, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button, and you will definitely want to check out my latest video on Brian Stelter humiliating himself one last time on CNN. You're going to absolutely love it. So make sure to click on that link, and I will see you over there. God bless.